Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined in conversation by Amy from the Humans Outside podcast. In this beautiful conversation, Amy shares her unorthodox journey of embracing nature and how even when you don't particularly consider yourself outdoorsy, it's still possible to head outside. We talk about how she has taught herself to cultivate a relationship with the outdoors, even when it felt uncomfortable and challenging. Whilst we are now more regularly told of the benefits that being outside in nature can offer, Amy shares the benefits she has experienced personally, from an increase in creativity to feeling more resilient emotionally and having better relationships as a result, to some surprising ones like being more organised in daily life and even feeling more productive. From committing to her own daily outdoor rituals, she has gone on to inspire many more people to make their own leaps into embracing a more outdoorsy lifestyle through her Humans Outside 365 challenge and her own Humans Outside podcast. This is a truly inspiring episode as Amy offers up so much wisdom, but with a full-on dose of humour and humility, sharing the highs and lows of spending 20 minutes outside every day for the last 2,400 days. From finding yourself a regular sit spot to simply being reminded that we sometimes won't see things unless we are actually looking for them, like the aurora borealis or northern lights, to just a gentle reminder that we need to make choices in our lives as to what we want to prioritise, so that we make time for it rather than hoping to find time for it. We both hope that our chat leaves you inspired to commit to being outside more, and we would both love to hear from you, so make sure to follow us both on social media and share and tag us as you develop your own daily outdoor practices. Welcome, Amy, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. It's really lovely to have you with us, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing what you do because I think it will be a great inspiration to the listeners. But to get us started, I always just ask my guests to share a little bit about their nature story, and that can be interpreted any way you like, just any fond memories of nature or how your relationship with nature has changed through your life. So if there's anything you'd like to share to get us started, it'd be lovely.
Yeah, sure. So once upon a time, no, I'm just kidding. I never considered myself outdoorsy until maybe the last 8 years.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
I never considered myself outdoorsy. Looking back, I was, I guess. I mean, what does outdoorsy mean, right? So that's always a question that I know we probably talk a lot about a lot.
Yeah.
But looking back, I was raised in California, on the west coast of the U.S. And whatever your stereotype of California may or may not be, I was in Northern California, which is sort of near San Francisco. So not the warm, sunny Los Angeles, Hollywood part. But I did grow up right on a beach. I mean, within a couple blocks from the Pacific Ocean. And in a place that was very foggy most of the time, lots of fog from the coast, temperatures I'm not even going to pretend to try to convert this to Celsius, guys. I'm so sorry. But temperatures in the low 50s, mid 50s, low 60s Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So comfortable, but not warm per se.
Yeah, I was going to say the chilly side.
The chilly side, the wear a hoodie side, yes.
Yeah.
And I was homeschooled, so I pretty much got to do whatever I wanted outside of my school hours. I also had a lot of brothers and sisters. So my mom was like, get out of here, go do whatever you want, right? Don't bother me. So I spent my time playing on the beach in the sand and playing pretend and reading, classic literature, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson and The Secret Garden. And I spent my days just sort of wandering the beach, looking for seashells, looking for sea glass, and just reading on the beach. I mean, just being on the beach outside.
It sounds
all the time.
idyllic, and I definitely say outdoorsy.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it's wild that I never thought of myself as outdoorsy. Well, then, okay, so I grew up, I went off to college, graduated, worked indoors, did not go on outdoor adventures, and my family, we went, stayed in a cabin once a year up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. But we were in a not particularly rustic cabin.
Yeah.
And we would go hike around there. But that was really the only time that I went to something other than my comfort zone of the
Yeah.
beach. Right.
Yeah.
And so I did not know how to really hike. I did not know, like the safety stuff of that. I never really went tent camping. I didn't have the skill set to be outside in anything but the relative
Yeah.
safety
Okay.
of the sand on the beach. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I grew up, that was just so outside of my comfort zone. I never ever did it. And I lived in a city. I lived in Washington, D.C., and I didn't have access to that. Then when I got married, we moved to Washington State, which is all the way on the other side of the country
Yeah.
again. And it is a very outdoorsy sort of place. Lots of evergreen trees, lots
Yeah.
of mountains. And it was out of my comfort zone. I didn't have the skill set and I did not spend a lot of time outside. Well, fast forward, married, I have a couple of kids, young boys, and my husband wants to do stuff outside. And a mentor gave me some advice, which she said, like, either you join them or they go without you. And so I
Okay.
thought, okay, so we're gonna be outdoorsy.
Yeah.
And I started trying. We went to a store, an outfitter we have here called REI, which is sells outdoor gear you need, outdoor gear you don't need, just like outdoor gear that you don't have money for, just everything.
Yeah.
And we went there and we spent all of the money and we bought all of the things. And then we started camping together as a family. And it was this magical transformation where my husband, who had been in military service at the time, was as an active duty soldier. He's in the National Guard, so it's a little bit less intense, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But he had been in Afghanistan, and it was like watching him take off a backpack of problems and of
Yeah.
mental challenge
Yeah.
and put it down as he was pitching this tent. Like you could just see that falling off of him
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with it, and we would go as often as possible. And then when it came time for him to get out of the active duty military, we decided we would do something super wild and move up here where I am today to Alaska. We had never been here before. So
Oh,
we packed the
wow.
kids and the stuff and the dog and the station wagon, literally, and which is like the stereotype thing to do, right? But that's what we did. And we drove across the country. It took us about 2 weeks all
Oh,
told.
wow.
It's an extremely long drive, thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of miles. Um, Up through Canada and into Alaska, which is where we've lived ever since. And we just love it here. And I mean, that's really the start of it, like
Yeah.
entering Alaska and with this idea of being outdoorsy people, like, how is this going to go? And
Yeah.
then seeing what happens next.
And I guess having that foundation as well from when your husband was in active duty and seeing like in him the amazing benefits that being in nature brought to him. And I mean, a lot of people are drawn to nature for that reason, aren't they? That
Right.
it actually has
Hmm.
these amazing benefits that, you can like, you put it beautifully, you can put your troubles down and just feel this support around
Right.
you.
Well, and you and I spend a lot of time talking about this, right, in our individual ways. But most of the time people don't put this to words, right? They just know that it's true.
Yeah,
And
just
so
a feeling.
there's just something true about this idea, that this experience, that when you go to a lake without a lot of people around, or even with a lot of people around, and if you can focus on the lake and just take a time and a pause to appreciate that and be present, it does something. It heals.
Yeah.
If you can get in that lake, great. If you can be on top of the lake in a kayak or a boat, awesome. If you can just spend time by a campfire and just listening, fantastic, right? All of these things are changing you
Yeah.
and stripping things away in a way that you don't even need to quantify. You don't need to put into words. It just is.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really love about what you do is it's like you're not sort of prescribing the way people go outdoors. You're like, there's so many different ways you can go outdoors and you can receive those benefits. And, there's something that will appeal to everyone, whether that's, just taking a gentle walk or going and sitting or doing some bird watching even, or doing something far more active, like you were saying, kayaking or hiking or running or some sport even. It's Like there's a way for everyone to find a way to be outside that is enjoyable and pleasurable to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned what I do. Well, we got up here to Alaska, and what I did was I watched a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Like I was just very overwhelmed, I think, with
Yeah.
moving up here, finding new friends, finding like everything from where is the oatmeal in the grocery store that you've never been
Yeah.
to, where am I going to go to church, to how are my kids enrolled in school, um, different weather. I mean, everything, single thing here was new and different and outside of my personal experience. Um, I mean, like all these little stresses add up, you
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
very windy here. It's very windy here, and the wind comes off the glacier, which is just terrifying sounding. And so it can be very, very windy and very cold. So one day I'm in the parking lot outside my kid's school, not very many months into living here, into their first school year. And it was very windy, and I have never lived in wind like this. And
Yeah.
so as I opened my car door, the wind caught it and slammed it open against the car next to me. And
Oh.
the woman in that car just lost her mind.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
it didn't even leave a dent of any kind. I'm not like exaggerating. It did not really hurt her car, but she was freaking out, man.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just remember standing there being like, first of all, how can you expect your car not to have any dings in it, living somewhere where rocks are flying around all the time? But okay. But second of all, this is just another thing on this burden of being overwhelmed by all of the new
Yeah.
stuff here.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, I felt like I had to hide,
Yeah.
and so I don't remember very many of the outdoor things we did that first year. I know we did them. Because I've seen the pictures. Like, I don't remember doing them so often. My husband's like, "Oh yeah, we went there." I'm like, "We did."
Yeah.
Uh, but after that first year, some point in the winter time. So we got here in June, which is the nicest time of year
Yeah.
that's out literally all the time. Like it's a great time to be here. You're going to come visit Alaska, come in June. That's my advice. Then it gets dark, it gets dark. At some point in January, I started to like wake up a little bit as it's
Yeah.
getting lighter outside. And I realized like, oh, like you live in Alaska. Okay, so now we're gonna wait for it to be nice outside so we can be in
Yeah.
Alaska. We're gonna
Yeah.
like
Okay.
hold out on this. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
wait. Because
You're
you can't.
hibernating like the bear at the moment. Yeah.
Yes, like, and obviously, sarcasm, please hear the sarcasm dripping from my voice. Obviously, you cannot go outside if the weather is bad.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the U.S. holiday Memorial Day, which is in the end of May, and I'm like, okay, this is like
Yeah.
the traditional first day of summer. Like, let's do this. And it's raining. It is raining. It is like a very like British rainy day. Like, seriously, okay? Like, what happened here? And I'm like obstinately sitting outside in the rain. It's like bloop, bloop, reading Harry Potter on my porch, like, so help me God. It is
Yeah.
going to be nice. And I'm going to be out here. I'm going to like will the rain away. And I had this moment where I was like, yo, like, you're not going to will the rain away. It ain't
Yeah.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to will yourself out in it anyway. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to be here and if you want to have a reason for trucking yourself in your whole life all the way to Alaska to like live somewhere more outdoorsy, like, what are you doing? And so I stood up. It's like this very memorable, dramatic moment for me. It's like I can see it happening right now. I stood up. I went inside. My husband was off at some military thing. I went inside. I got on my computer. I ordered rain gear for everyone. Okay, like rain pants, the whole nine.
Yeah.
I looked at my kids and I said, "Get dressed. We're going on a hike. Like, get your rain jacket or whatever." Because we did have some things, right? Just not
Yeah.
not like full kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
But our shoes were going. And I drove across town to this little hike that we had been on one time. I think probably had to look up the trailhead. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
extremely popular hike that people do. Some people do every day, and I had been there one time in the year.
Yeah.
So, like, I look up directions to this, go out there, and take, march my kids to the top of this thing. And it stopped raining and it was beautiful and we were hot in all of our clothes. And we stood up there and I was like, okay, okay, like we're gonna Alaska, I will meet you halfway or not even halfway. I'll just meet you wherever you are. And then we're gonna do this thing. And I had this idea that I needed to see what would happen if I just spent a little bit of time outside every day from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Like, okay, can you do it? Can you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
get over the weather? Can you get over yourself?
Yeah.
And so I did that. Memorial Day to Labor Day. And by the way, it was a very rainy summer. This was like there was a lot of like being outside in the rain. In fact, one day I was like super over it. Like, okay,
I'm not doing this.
like
Yeah.
so my outside time was I literally took a cup of coffee in a rain jacket and stood on my back porch just scowling. Okay, for maybe 5, 6 minutes. And I was like, that's it. And I went back inside. It's just pouring rain. Okay, so as Labor Day, which is the end of the summer, it's like the first weekend in September, I think,
Yeah.
started getting closer. And there are 99 days between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So I thought that this was a lovely number. As that started getting closer, I was like, okay, well, I'm not really ready to stop doing this. Like this is
Yeah.
pretty great. So let's make some rules and make like a whole year challenge out of it. So I did some research. And at the time, this was in 2017. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot of studies that are out now that talk about like what is a decent amount of time, like what is a
Yeah. Yeah.
measurable amount of time to spend outside that has measurable impact. Those didn't really exist yet. And so I extrapolated from the stuff that did exist that 20 minutes was a pretty good amount of time to spend time outside every day. And that would, and also it was an amount of time that made me feel like it was worth getting ready.
Yeah. If it was
In the
raining and you put all your clothes on, you're like, yeah,
yeah. And in
I'm
the
not
wintertime,
taking
it's
them
like,
off again.
right. It's like super cold outside. So it's going to take you 10 minutes to find your stuff. Okay. And now you're outside for 5. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. So I decided 20 minutes was a pretty good amount of time for a bunch of reasons. And that also it wasn't too long.
Yeah.
Like I could fit it into my schedule.
Yeah.
Like you can
Which
find
is
20 minutes.
important, isn't it? I think because a lot of people
Yes.
feel overwhelmed if you start saying, "Oh, you've got to go out for an hour or even half an
Right.
hour." Like under that
Right.
half an hour is just quite a sort of like, yeah, I
Yes.
feel
It's
like
a
I
whole
could
different
do that.
discussion.
Yeah.
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 And so I was like, okay, 20 minutes. Like this is a doable amount of time that I won't make an excuse about. Okay. It's
Yeah.
just 20 minutes. And so I started doing that with that first after Labor Day. 2 days after that, it was like a hurricane. Like so
Mother
hot.
Nature was really testing you here, wasn't she?
It was
Just like a summer of rain.
It was like deluge. It just poured rain. And I have this picture of just like being soaking wet, like a drowned cat,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like, okay, like now I'm feeling stubborn and like we're doing this thing. So help me God. So the first year, I did it. I did 20 minutes every day. And I got to the end of that first year and I wasn't ready to stop again. And so that's just been how it is. It's 2024 right now. I've creeping up on, I think, 2,400 days outside at this point.
Wow.
Consecutively. And my rules for this, like in case you're wondering, are the 20 minutes has to be all together all at once. That's the only rule, actually. Like
Yeah.
everything else is up in the air. You can do whatever you want. Some people might wonder, like, is being in a car with your window down counted outside? I mean, do what you want. For me, that's not being outside. That's having your window down in a car. Is
It's
being
like
in your
sitting in house
garage
with the window open.
yeah. I mean, certainly has benefits, but it doesn't count for me for this challenge. For me, again, being in my garage with the door open, no. I mean, like I'm looking outside, I'm seeing the beautiful things, and there are plenty of times that would be a super convenient way to be outside. But I don't do that either. I want to challenge myself a little bit more than that. But if that sounds good to you, you do that.
I was going to say, feel the sun on your skin, but maybe just the rain on you, on your skin.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be out there in the rain getting wet.
Right. Exactly. And also the garage, because again, it gets very windy here. So the garage could be a really great place to hide from the wind while seeing what's going on out there. But I just think that to me, it doesn't count. So I don't do that. lots of people want to know if being in a tent counts as being outside. And I would say that if you are in a tent, the likelihood of you being outside 20 minutes independent of the tent is very, very high.
Yeah.
So why are you worrying about this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah, exactly. That you know,
yeah,
even setting up the tent and then
right.
taking it down, you probably
Okay, if you are on Everest, my friends, and
yeah.
you are in a tent all day,
Yeah.
uh, except for the 2 minutes you go outside to go to the bathroom, I think we can count that as your
Yeah.
outside time. Like if that's your situation, I will allow it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like if you made it all the way there, you get to count being in a tent as being your outside time. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, these are things people worry about, and I totally understand. Like you want to know what you're doing and how to do it. Other than the consecutive thing, which again, that is my rule. I would say all things, anything counts. Oh, by the way, if you feel like 20-minute consecutive minutes outside isn't something that you can do, I would say challenge yourself to do it. However, do whatever you want. Go
Yeah.
outside. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just get that time in and experience being outside and take the benefits for what they are.
Yeah, I mean that I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think what's lovely because you actually offer a challenge on your
Mhm.
website to people as well, so they can sign up to you. So they're sort of showing a commitment because I think that's the other thing as well is like having this accountability because a lot of us are very good at talking ourselves out of, oh, today I'm just not feeling up to it. Like
That's
so,
right.
having something that keeps you accountable is great as well. But yeah, just doing something, isn't it? I think that's what it's about, is it's about doing what feels achievable. And for
Hmm.
you that was 20 minutes. Ideally I would guess probably you want to really be 10 minutes minimum, I think, just to kind of like you said, make it worthwhile. But just to do something and just step outside. I mean, I suppose it's quite difficult for me because I've always had animals. I'm not even sure I can remember not spending 20 minutes outside, but I know that I'm not normal as well.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think also like, I've talked to some people about this. Like, okay, they're like, oh, I spent 20, I've got like feed the pigs. I'm out here every day. Are you getting the benefit? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I think there are benefits to being outside doing that. Um, are you getting the benefits of being outside intentionally because you're doing chores?
Yeah.
I would hypothesize that if you spent 20 minutes outside for you instead of 20 minutes outside for something else, right? Chores or taking care of animals or whatever, that is a different experience with different benefits.
Yeah.
Um, Not to say that the other thing isn't important or beneficial to like literally everybody, like for a variety of reasons that people, the animals are getting fed. Also, you're like outside moving. Like obviously, there are lots and lots of benefits to that. I would hypothesize that they are not the same benefits as being outside intentionally, where you are being outside for the sake of being outside, not being outside because you have to.
Yeah. And what have you, I mean, obviously you kind of went from the extreme of like not being outside, being sort of hibernating because of the weather and everything, and then moving through this cycle. What benefits have you? I mean, obviously there's research out there that tell people what they're going to experience, but what do
Mhm.
you feel you've experienced personally from doing this journey?
Yeah, I think there are two categories. I think one is like personal benefits, like I feel more creative. I feel more productive because I am able to focus, right? Like I think my relationships are better because I have time outside where I'm building them. And I one-on-one time with people where there aren't as many distractions, or the distractions are things that we're overcoming together. Like if you're on a
Yeah.
hike and it's hard, now you're distracted by the hard thing, but it also gives space for you to experience stuff. I think that I am an emotionally more mature person, right? Like I have the ability to overcome challenges inside because I can remember times that I've overcome challenges outside. I think I have well, I'm healthier probably, right? Like, because I'm outside moving and
Yeah.
being. I mean, you don't have to move outside. You can do whatever you want. But for me, I like to move. And so I'm outside running, I'm outside trying different sports and trying new things. And I also live somewhere very cold. So if you're not going to move in the wintertime, you're either going to be like under a tremendous amount of layers. And I would suggest that you try moving and see if you warm up, or you're going to be like, I have a hot tub. It was my pandemic purchase. So I do sit in my hot tub sometimes for my 20 minutes, but honestly, like that's a really long time in a hot tub. You get really hot.
Yeah.
So I do not love doing that. Every now and then that happens, but that's not my preferred thing at all. I do, however, get in the hot tub to warm up from being outside.
Yeah.
That totally happens. Okay. So it replaced my long hot shower habit. That's the first category, these like physiological, like scientific benefits. I would say that there's also the second category, which is what I call the gifts of being outside. Like these are things, and they're related to those other benefits, but they are things that I feel like I have gained. They've been gifted to me by this practice. So a recent one is to learn that if I look around, I get to experience, like if I take the time to find it, I can experience the benefit of awe,
Yeah.
which is that feeling of just like, it's just this sort of magical feeling, right?
Wonder.
Of
Yeah.
being, yeah, wonder. Like
Yeah.
that is a gift. Getting to
Like,
experience that is a gift.
yeah, that sort of childhood feeling, isn't it? Of
Hmm.
just like in this amazing world and there's just
Yes.
incredible
Yeah,
things all around you. And
exactly.
yeah, I mean,
You know,
I love that.
yeah, like, okay, so the other day, I, so for years we lived here and I never saw the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. And I realized it's because I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I never looked up.
That simple. Very
Right. Like
simple.
I thought people were going through heroic efforts to get out in the
Yeah.
mountains or like be up at 2 a.m. or something. I get up very early in the morning. I'm an early bird. It's dark outside. I never was looking for it. I didn't know what I was looking for, first
Yeah.
of all, because when you see the aurora, it does not look like it does in the pictures
No,
typically,
it's
right?
very different. The what you see through someone's camera is very different to what you experience in real life.
Typically, that's true. That's not always completely true. I've seen a couple of light experiences myself that are very close to what my camera picks up. Um, but they're not like this hyper color like thing that you see blown out on these photos. Often you're like clouds or aurora. Okay. Cause it's dark outside and it's not like they make a sound.
Yeah.
So it just looks like it can look like just stripes of clouds across the sky. And
Yeah.
then if you watch it for a while, it starts to like move and bend and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But you gotta like look for it.
Yeah.
Didn't do that.
Yeah.
This morning I looked. So what I do when I get up out of the bed now, because I have learned I have to look for things, is I get up, I brush my teeth and stuff, come upstairs, look out my back window, like what's going on out there? Okay. Like, is there clouds or not? Essentially, like, are the stars out or not? Is the sun rising? What's the morning look like?
Yeah.
Just like literally look. And I would learn that by going outside, right? Okay. So I'm like, I look outside, it's cloudy, the sun's coming up, okay, fine. Go about my business. Every morning I do like this stretching routine because I run a lot and I'm trying not to break myself. And as I'm doing this, I happen to look out my front window. I have these big picture windows, and lo and behold, it's almost a full moon and it is hanging there in the sky, like looking at me,
Wow.
like right outside my window.
Wow.
And I did not see it before because I did not look for it.
Yeah.
And then you better believe I like whipped myself around on that yoga mat so that I could face the window and watch this moon set below the clouds. Obviously I was inside my house, not outside, but like these are benefits. Like what happens when you look for something in life, not just the outside stuff, but just like literally anything.
Yeah.
And you might find it. That's what happens.
Yeah. No, it is really true though, because I mean, we don't get as much aurora in the UK as you do. We get a little bit in the north sometimes, but actually, I went to Finland quite a few years ago, and we were shown there, and again, it was quite weak at the time, but like he was like, no, if you see this sort of coloration, then and then like I have quite good cameras, so we sort of pointed our cameras out and we are like, oh wow, there's this like whole world that's actually there. But at the moment we're getting quite a lot of aurora in the UK. I think there's a certain cycle it goes through, and you have a peak, and it's a peak at the moment, And like people right down in Cornwall, which is like the very south of the UK, are actually being able to take pictures of the aurora. And it's true. It's like you have to look for it. Like I grew up and I was like, oh, we don't have it here. And then like since going to Finland, I'm like, oh yeah, we get it a bit in the north. And now I'm like in a group and they're like this great guy's in Norfolk and he's like, yeah, like if go and look now.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, and it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But I think we're all really guilty of like not looking and not having awareness for what's on our doorstep. And I think that's another lovely side of your practice as well, is if you're doing 20 minutes every day, you're not going to necessarily go out of your local environment. So you're going to be just building this beautiful new relationship with your immediate local
Hmm.
world and
Yes.
feeling more, I guess, grounded and connected as well. I think
Hmm.
you have a lovely practice that you have taken recently, which is your sit spot, where you go once a
Hmm.
month. And I was just, yeah, I was quite
Yeah.
inspired by that. I thought that's a lovely practice to have.
Yeah. So I have to credit Alistair Humphreys, who is a UK author. He's got a great new book out that a UK audience will appreciate more than a US one, which is called Local. And I really think everybody listening to this should read that book because it's about where you live. If you
Yeah.
are in the UK listening to this, it is about where you live, and it is really good.
Yeah.
Um, and it is it is less really good for the US audience because it's very specific to the environment there.
Okay. Yeah.
There were still lots of things that I appreciated from it, and I think everyone should read it. But if you live in the UK, you will appreciate it especially. One of Alistair's practices is that he has a tree. He sits in this tree, the same tree, at the same time, once a month for years, I think now. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And so I picked not a tree. I don't really want to sit in a tree, but also we don't have any fantastic trees for
Yeah.
this here.
They're too straight and not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So I was like, well, we're going to go find we'll sit near a tree. Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. But it didn't matter. I wanted to find somewhere that was accessible year round because that's
Yeah.
a challenge here.
Yeah.
I wanted to find somewhere that I wanted to go. I needed to find somewhere with this idea, like you have to pick something you'll actually do that was not far away from me. Cause I knew if I was going to do this, it'd probably be in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Probably, like at an inconvenient time because I wanted to do it at a time that would always be daylight, which
Yeah.
isn't always true here either.
Yeah.
So I actually thought quite a lot about this before I picked a spot. I picked a spot by a nearby lake. That's just a few miles from my house. It's a place that has a campground next to it. In the summer, we spend a lot of time there. So I'm familiar with getting there and how long it takes and that they keep
Yeah.
the parking lot plowed and all of these things. And so now on a certain day every month at the same exact time, which I've motivated myself to be on time because I take a picture at the same time
Oh,
of the
nice.
same thing every time, right? So I got to be there at that time or I
Yeah.
cannot take that picture. Last time I was almost late. So I almost missed the photo time like by a minute. I was like, Amy, get it together. So I started doing that in January in the big jacket,
Yeah.
and I discovered that I picked a perfect spot because the wind comes from, there's a bench there that I can brush off, and the wind comes from my back. It doesn't
Oh,
usually
yeah.
come from the
Yeah. Nice.
front facing way.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So
It's a bit more comfortable.
yeah, so my back will always be to the whipping wind, if and when it's here. So that's fantastic. I was like, oh, thank you for Jesus that I picked the spot. And I just sat there for 20 minutes, tried not to look at my phone, tried just to observe and listen and see things. I discovered that people drive on that lake when it's frozen. I did not know that. I don't think I'd ever been there in January.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure I'd never been there in January. I've been watching the trees change,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, I've been listening to the birds. I've been watching the buds come out, and I love it. And it creates this pause on a day of a week in the first, of the like once a month that I get to go there and I look forward to now. So this last time I was like, I'm gonna like go over here and hug this tree. I know that sounds crazy, but I was really inspired.
No tree hugger here, so you're in good company.
Yeah, okay. So I was like, you are doing a good job of being old and tall and here. because we recently had a bunch of trees cut down behind my house. So
Oh, oh
I'm
yeah.
appreciating trees that aren't cut down. And then there's this little tree, skinny birch tree next to this big cottonwood tree, like co-opting its space essentially, or vice versa. Who can say? So I like gave that tree a hug too, and I was like, "You are doing a good job of being here and in this spot. Don't go anywhere." And then on my way to my car, I stopped and like talked to these trees that last year I used to hold up a hammock. I was like,
Oh
"I will be
wow.
back.
Yeah.
You stay here."
Oh.
And then as I approached my car, I stepped on a like sneaky ice puddle under some snow, slipped, hit the ground so hard. I have this huge bruise on my
Oh.
leg now. And I like it hurt because I hit like a zipper on my pants or something,
Oh
like
yeah.
nailed myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm like, oh, by the way, there's someone in the parking lot watching all of this. Fantastic. So then I like stand up and I looked at that puddle and I was like, "You are rude." And I got in my car and drove away. No, bad, and left. So maybe if you spend some time outside, you'll start talking to ice puddles and trees. I don't know. Who can say? That's what happens after 2,400 days ish outside. Maybe
Yeah,
we don't know.
I think it's you start deepening the connection with the world around you, don't you? It becomes
Mhm.
more animate to you than it
Yes.
perhaps was previously. And I think that's what's lovely about the practice as well, is going somewhere once a month, you really see the changes. And I think it probably connects you more to the seasonality than, that sort of, if you were going somewhere every day where everything is just quite a gradual, slow change, and you suddenly are like, oh, now we're in spring. Whereas,
Right.
it's quite sort of going once a month. You're like, oh wow, look at everything that's changed. And
Exactly. And I got to be honest, there was no way I was going to do that once a week. No way. Like I can totally see myself saying this is just sustainable to do my 20 minutes here once a week.
yeah,
It's not. I wouldn't do that. I'm
yeah,
like I will never make that happen. Because life, and I'll find an excuse and it's too much or whatever, right? So maybe some people could do that and they would do that. But I say like know yourself a little bit, right?
yeah,
And start small.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's important as well. And I think it's nice about like how you've approached your 20 minutes every day is like it can be something different as well. Like it doesn't have to be the same thing. And actually, I guess over time you've done numerous different things for your 20 minutes a day. I just think it's just such a lovely practice though, isn't it? Well, you touched on it for like almost mindfulness as well. Like you were saying about actually if you're just outside doing chores, it's different, and it is a sort of mindful practice as well of just carving out time for yourself, which is also important.
Yeah, and I think that you have the chance to do that, but you don't take it. Like for most people, right? Life is busy,
Yeah.
and it's easy to get caught up in the things. I would say the other thing that this has given me is this ability to create habits that sustain my ability to go outside for 20 minutes.
Okay.
As crazy as it sounds. So like, for example, I am a little bit more organized in my life. I am a little bit better about planning food for my family, like just menu planning. So I don't have to think about that. So I can
Yeah.
go outside instead. And I'll say like I try to spend more than 20 minutes outside. Like 20 minutes is my minimum. And
Yeah.
yes, there are 1000% days that I'm like 20 minutes, cool. Back inside.
Job
Like
done.
nailed it.
Tick. Yeah.
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 Maybe I'm busy. Maybe the weather's not great. Maybe I like left my 20 minutes to the very end of the day and now I'm late for something. Uh, if you want to go outside every day, you probably want to do it at the time that's like nice, right? So now you have to be a little bit organized around making it happen, plan it, set it in your schedule.
Yeah.
Um, so I've gotten better at thinking things through ahead, which makes me less harried the rest of the time, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna go outside for 20 minutes and the warmest time of the day is 1 p.m., then I have to move something else from one. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm very busy. I think we're all very busy. Time's a vacuum. We're gonna fill it up.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to
I
be
think that's
purposeful.
I mean something that a mentor said to me a long time ago, which really stuck with me, which was that you don't find time, you make it, and it's about prioritizing what's important. And I think a lot of times we sort of go through life and we're so busy, we think, oh, we're going to find time to do these things, but actually they're not enough of a priority, so we don't
Right.
make time to do them, and we get caught up with like putting out fires, basically,
Yeah.
that happen
Yeah.
to us.
I think it is true that sometimes most of the time it's true that it's not that you don't have time, it's that you don't want to have time.
Yeah,
That's not true all the time, but that's true most of the time. And I would say that you have to be purposeful about seeing which one of those is true. Um, Life is about priorities, right? So this is a priority to me, so I make it
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
But it does mean that something else doesn't happen. And maybe that something else that's not happening is me scrolling Instagram for an extra 20 minutes. I mean,
yeah,
that's entirely possible, right?
yeah,
But like, it's not like time's not going to be not used. You're going to use it for something. What is it? And
yeah.
is how important is it to you? And then go from there.
Yeah, and the benefits that you can have by doing it. But I mean, do you spend some of your time with your family? Obviously, that was part of your move to Alaska, was, I guess, like the whole
Yeah.
family to benefit from the outside.
Yeah.
So are your children joining you in your 20 minutes
Yeah.
every day, or
They
some days,
definitely,
or
yeah, some days, not every day. You know, I have teenagers now, so they are less likely to do what I said.
yeah,
Or more likely to insert their own opinions into it. We do have a habit of after school taking walks together.
yeah,
Um, Especially my 15-year-old who's in high school now. We we take a walk after he's been sitting inside all day because he doesn't have any kind of PE or recess in his day.
yeah, yeah,
And I think he really enjoys that and appreciates that. We have a dog. The dog needs to get walked. So I have a son who takes the dog on a walk. That son likes to be by himself. He wants that
yeah,
solitude. And so
yeah,
I let him have that by doing that activity. Um, I think that once something becomes a part of just your family life, it's just a part of your family life. So we don't, because we've been doing this so long, I no longer have to think about it,
yeah,
about
yeah,
like, are we getting outside as a family? Are these kids doing stuff outside? Because they just kind of do,
yeah,
it just
yeah.
kind of
I
happens.
think I think that's what's lovely though. It's like you're not forcing them to do it, but you've set up this space where they're seeing you do it. They're seeing the
Hmm.
benefits that you're
Yeah,
experiencing. They've experienced it a bit themselves, and it's a tool that they'll have for the rest of their lives as well.
right.
Something to come back to when they need it, if they need it.
And let's not lie. Sometimes I am forcing them to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I think anyone who has kids, like, she never forces them. No, I definitely do. Yeah. So
Well, I just meant as they've got older, they've
yes, yeah, but like I don't want to sound like it's harmony and wonderful. Everyone's always just like rushing to go outside every day because that is so not happening.
yeah.
Sometimes I have to be like, get out the door. We are going for a walk. Change your attitude. Let's go. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's been really fantastic talking with you, Amy. I think you have an amazing podcast as well. So if anyone's been inspired listening to you today, and just your real, I love it, very down to earth, but great, just good fun, and you just make me smile. So if anyone else wants to jump over and listen to Amy's podcast, it's called Humans Outside. And you've got some great episodes. You have guests, but you also just share some like lovely short little examples of your life and your experience. But you've also got your challenge on your website as well.
I do.
So do you want to just share a little bit about how people could sign
Yeah.
up to that if they wanted to take part?
Yeah, thank you. Of course. So I call it the Humans Outside 365 Challenge, so that 365 days of the year. You can find information about that at humansoutside.com/challenge. And what I have there are some challenge kits, if you will, at various levels, and they come with various different types of swag. Yes, I will ship them to the UK. And they also come with some digital stuff that you'll get by email unless the system breaks again. I
Oh,
just
we love
just
technology, don't we?
yeah. Just don't deal with that. If you don't get your stuff, please let me know. And because I just assume it's working unless I happen to spot otherwise. That happened recently. That was a bummer. But coloring sheet, a sticker saying you finished your doing it, and monthly encouragement from me
Yeah.
by email, where I talk about just sort of different things to think about each month as you're getting ready to tackle the month ahead. And yeah, if you follow me, so that those are kits. That's if you need a little bit of an extra boost, that accountability.
Yeah.
Sometimes that really can help folks. But guess what? Going outside 20 minutes every day, totally free. So you don't need to sign up for my challenge to do that. And you don't need to sign up for my challenge to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Humans Outside. If you tag Humans Outside on your Instagram posts, I will 1000% interact with you. And, I'll see what you're doing every day and you can see what I'm doing every day. I post a photo to Instagram literally every day, unless I forget. And then it's early the next morning. That happens sometimes, or I'm out of cell range. I'll catch up later, but I do have a picture a day
when you're.
That's right. I do have a picture a day up there on Humans Outside on Facebook and Instagram. And a lot of them are selfies of me doing very similar things outside, but they exist. So you can look at them and see all the different things we got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am outside. It's my little accountability, right? That's how I take care of it. So yeah, I think, gosh, I do have a lot of hats. I'll be honest. I have all these hats and I'm like, you got to wear a different hat today, Amy, because yesterday's picture had the other hat in it. So that's my little thing. Now
so that people know you haven't faked it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's pink hat day. That's what's up. How you feeling? Which hat you want? Because yeah. And then I run a lot. So I try to make my photos of running look slightly different every time. It's hard. Running looks the same every time. That's the challenge. So you gotta spice it up. But I do want people to know I'm out there and I have my accountability too.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. And if anyone listening has been inspired, then tag me and Amy on social media. We'd love to see like you getting outside
absolutely.
and joining the challenge. So, but it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Amy. And is there anything else that you would like to just leave people with? Just any words of wisdom to share before we log off?
Yeah, I mean, go outside now. You can listen to podcasts outside. You should do that. Listen, going outside is always worth it. It always is. I've never had a day that I regretted doing it. I've had days that are challenging to get into my schedule. I've had days that the weather was annoying, that I had to overcome not wanting to. I've had days where I've worn several jackets all at the same time, but I've never regretted the action and the activity and having done it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach it. Is sometimes you have to have that little inner conversation with yourself to get yourself out the door. But actually, once you've done it and you've felt that sense, there's a sense of accomplishment as well, isn't there?
That's right.
Of it as well. So yeah. It's that extra benefit of not just being outside in nature and getting all the benefits of that connection and that relationship, but also feeling like you're achieving something and accomplishing something as well. We all need a bit of that.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. It's been fantastic speaking to you. And I hope everyone has a lovely time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I truly hope this conversation has brought some hope and inspiration into your life. I would love to have these messages ripple out across the world. So if you can, please share this episode with your friends, leave a review on your favourite podcast player, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to connect with me on the links provided in the podcast description. But most importantly, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. But don't forget to simply get out there and enjoy the natural world.